welcome to the Real Powerhouse podcast. I'm your host, BJ Gramillion, and today I have my friend Pat. I just said Matt. We were talking about Matt before this, and so of course I say it. Pat Martin, also known as Patrick, is on the show with us today. And this is, let's see, you're the second one in Tennessee that I've had on the show. First from Knoxville. So
it's good to be on, BJ.
Hey, love having you on. I know you got a really cool story and journey, and so we'll jump into that. But yeah, Pat, tell us. This is another thing that I learned when I moved out for whatever reason. So I know Pat from Collective Genius, and we got talking, and usually when I say that I have 5 kids, people are like, "Oh my gosh," they just can't believe it. 5 kids, and I was talking to Pat, and he's like, "Yeah, we got 6." What? You just one-upped us? You got 6 kids? So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your family, if you don't mind, and maybe like what got you into real estate.
Yeah, so like you said, I do have 6 kids. Wife is Emily, and love my family. And we got married young. I was 19. My wife was 21, and
Whoa.
I was in school. Got married in the middle year and a half into college. Got married, moved my wife up into the student housing, and I think we had a baby about a year and a half later.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then we had our first 5. When our 5th one was born, which it was boy and girl twins, my oldest was still 4. So we had 5 kids, 4 years old and under.
Whoa. Holy
Yeah.
smokes. You did. See, I didn't know that either. That's crazy. So you have twins. How old are your twins now?
They're the 12-year-old. So they were the youngest, and now we have a 1.5-year-old. So like you said before, straggler.
That is wild. Okay, that's a pretty wild story. So that makes us, because we're in that phase right now of, we've got 3 littles that are under the age of 5, and it's, man, like I this funny story. I drove home yesterday because I got home a little bit later because I drive from Chattanooga, and so I got home a little bit later than I like, and so my wife had to take off to her thing that she had, and we put our 10-year-old boy in charge of watching the kids, which we all know how that's going to turn out. So he's just down there watching TV. He has no idea what's going on. But I pull up to our driveway, and one of the kids is naked. The other one's in her diaper. And then, the other one's just running around. None of them have clothes on. And I'm like, oh, this is great. It's just kind of fun to pull up to. And as I get closer, I realize, like he doesn't have his diaper on. And then, is that poop all over his body? That poop everywhere, all over him. And they're just laughing it up. He's got poop on. And I'm like, man, this is wild. What are we doing? This is like we'll look back on this time, hopefully at some point, and smile, but it's pretty chaotic. So at least you've been through it, and you did it. And
I just don't think we realized how crazy it was at the moment until we look back. But
see, that was smart to have kids at such a young age. Like, you got energy still, right? And I mean, you still have your hair, which is also incredible. So nice work.
Yeah, I guess we just decided we didn't want to be 41 and 43-year-old empty nesters, so I had to start over again.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're like, you know what? Let's just, for good measure, get one more. Life's, I guess, too easy for you guys, so you had to complicate a little bit, huh? What was that like, by the way, having that big of a gap with your kids, just out of curiosity?
I mean, we love it. All my kids, I have 4 older daughters and a son, and my youngest one is a son. So they all just, act like his mom. They're all very capable, teens, preteens, and could raise them if they needed to. But they love it. I mean, it was such a long gap for my wife and I from having a baby.
Yeah.
And we've been through, the diaper phase for a long time now, and the can't take care of yourself phase for a long time.
Yeah.
And we wanted another one. It was on purpose to have our 6. And so nothing but excited. We love it. And he keeps us busy.
Man, that's so awesome. Okay. So you went to school. Did you go to UT, or where'd you go?
No, so we met actually in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So
okay.
Yeah. So I went to Michigan Tech. I didn't end up graduating there. Went there for 3 years studying biomedical engineering. And at the time, we were dirt poor. My wife worked at an assisted living home making like, she didn't believe me. She didn't believe this when I told her this recently. I'm like, you made 725 an hour. And I showed her her pay stub because she thought she made quite a bit more than that. And she was like the manager of the dining room, I believe. And so, we
Wow.
were just making nothing. And actually, during that time, soon after we got married, she ended up starting a network marketing business. And she did really, really well with that. And that kind of got my mind going on the entrepreneurial side. And I think ultimately is responsible for how I ended up getting into real estate because her making an income by the time I got out of college gave me the freedom to actually not go get a job afterwards. So
Yeah.
by the time I did graduate, which took a long time because I went 3 years in engineering, decided it wasn't for me, dropped out, and then ended up graduating from Northern Michigan University a couple years later with a finance degree.
Hmm.
And after that, so she was still doing her network marketing company, was still very successful, and we had 5 little kids, so I ended up being a stay-at-home dad for several years, and that's kind of what led me to get into real estate. Just getting a little bit bored being a stay-at-home dad. And
Sure.
so bought a house up in Michigan, the only one we did up there, bought it. Didn't have any money. I think I got my dad to go sign on the loan for us and lend me the down payment and, lived there for a year, year and a half and sold it and got a $20,000 check. And, for someone who doesn't have any money, doesn't make any money, getting a $20,000 check is a pretty good like incentive to, hey, maybe we should do this again. So then moved to Tennessee in 2010.
Why
Um,
Tennessee?
so we lived in Michigan where you would get 300 inches of snow a year, a lot of snow.
Wow.
And so my wife, it's in her some point in her childhood, her dad worked for Bowater down in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, and then I think what spurred it on is me and two of my brother-in-laws came to Tennessee for a mountain bike trip. We were pretty big into mountain biking. So we went to Chattanooga, Asheville. I don't actually think we came to Knoxville, but it's like March, spring break in March. And I call home to my wife. I'm like, babe, it's 80 degrees down here. We need to move.
Seriously.
So, and I couldn't, we had a lot of family up there. My dad moved around a lot for work. So he moved away from Michigan quickly after we got married, but her parents were still up there. Her grandparents were like in Wisconsin. Her sister was in Wisconsin. So I convinced her sister to move to Knoxville. So we both our families packed up U-Hauls. I think it was May 1st of 2010 and drove down to Knoxville, moved into apartments right next to each other and started our lives in Tennessee.
Wow. Wait, is that the sister that works for you right now?
Yeah, that's Heidi.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
How cool is that? Love Heidi, by the way. She's a
yeah.
great person. Man, that's wild. And that's really smart. I'm sure my wife is listening to this. Like, she's going to listen to it, but like, wait a minute, why didn't we think that through and bring one of my sisters along with me? Because I think that's what she
Yeah.
misses most is just, yeah, not having that. That was super smart. Whose idea was that? Was that your idea?
Oh, I wanted to move here, and I mean, yeah, remembering how it went down, I convinced her sister to want to move, and
Man.
her wife actually was in the same network marketing company as my wife, so they were, we were both kind of self-employed families and didn't have any jobs tying us down, and where we lived was fairly small towns, fairly depressed. Like, the paper mill was, the company that had like 900 jobs that that made a decent wage work for.
Wow.
So. Yeah, made the move. Emerald Woods, that's the name of the apartment complex right off of Cedar Bluff.
Okay. Nice. And does your wife still work? Is she involved in that still or no?
She still is involved, but she works less, a lot less now.
Yeah.
We kind of had this phase where we were doing this, where she was the income earner and worked all the time. I was at home, and then as my business has grown, I think she has really loved being a stay-at-home mom. So especially now that we have the new one, I think that's when the kind of dilemma hit, and she's like had to make the decision to,
Mm.
am I going to continue trying to grow this business, or am I going to just be committed to moving on and being a stay-at-home mom. So the cool thing about network marketing, like if you build your business, it can still exist without you. So she still, is active in the business as far as she still has people to sell product and still gets a paycheck every month. And um, but has just loves staying at home and loves being a stay-at-home mom. So
Wow. See, that's really impressive that you were the stay-at-home dad. I mean, was that, I imagine that well, you tell me. I've talked to my wife several times about this because she's thought about getting back into the, like into the game, and she wants
yeah,
to get a job just to kind of have like a purpose, right? Because obviously being a mom is very, you don't get a whole lot of love and appreciation for what you're doing, right? Like it's a long term benefit, but in the short term, she's like, I don't get a whole lot of praise or thanks, or there's not really a whole
yeah.
lot of satisfaction, like I guess in the short term where it's not like monetary, where you're like, oh, clearly I did a good job, I got paid, whatever. So I'm just curious, how was that for you, being a stay at home dad?
Oh, I mean, there were the moments where it was tough, right? Five little kids running around, busy all the time. I mean, I loved it and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
But I think there was still just this little, exactly, I think what your wife is talking about for me, just a little bit of a void of, wanting to. I was 100% backing of my wife and loved to see her be successful in what she did. And there wasn't any like jealousy or any issues with her being the one being the breadwinner for our family. But I just think I had this desire for more fulfillment, um, to go achieve something. And so it kind of, the business for me kind of transitioned over time. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I want to go start this big real estate company. It just started one house at a time
Mhm.
after we got to Knoxville.
Yeah. Yeah, you're one of the few people that didn't mention the Purple Bible. You weren't like, oh, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and now I got into real estate, and it never looked back.
I
Um,
actually did read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I remember we were in that first flip I did. I remember being in the basement reading it when my kids were running around. And it's funny how you have these weird memories, but I feel pretty stupid about this. I remember calling my mom, and there was something in the book that was like, you'd rather take a lot of risk and be wealthy than not risk anything and be poor. And like, I thought this was like some, yeah, but looking back, I'm like, okay, this is really, what I just said was really stupid.
oh man,
Uh,
that's funny. Yeah, it's pretty wild how much of an impact that book has had, obviously, on everyone in different ways. And so, I'm okay. So, you have kind of a unique journey, especially, with stay at home dad, five kids, wife is the breadwinner, and then, you slowly kind of came into real estate. And so, like, when did it click for you where you're like, hey, I can do this like at scale? Like, I can do this, it's repeatable. Was there some growing pains to that? Just curious how that all worked out.
oh yeah, for sure, growing pains. And, so the way I got started, I still, after I got here, we, relatively didn't have much money. And my dad and my brother had some money. My brother was in the military and single and, had some savings. So I got the two of them. We piled some money together and I started going to foreclosure auctions and buying a house, fixing it up, sticking a renter in it. So we did that, maybe 10, 11 rentals that we had. And then I bought this one at the auction and, went, got possession of it. And I was like, Dad, I think we bought it for 76,500, which is crazy because that house is probably worth 250 now, maybe 300. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I think we could turn around and sell this house right now as is and make like 30 grand. And, he didn't, didn't understand the business and had this hesitation. He's like, no, it can't be. If you can make 30K, someone else would have paid more for it. But we did it. And that kind of started down the road of doing some flips. And at some point in there, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was probably 2 to 3 years in. Then ran across, just reading and growing, listening to podcasts. I ran across a guy out of California. His name's Michael Quarles, and he is big into sales and marketing. So that's where I first learned about marketing to off-market sellers to buy their homes.
Hmm.
And that kind of changed the game for me because, going to auctions, you're kind of at the mercy of what's available and the other bidders that are there. So you can't really create your own destiny. You have to, you either have to A, be willing to pay more than everybody else that was there, or be patient and take what comes. So it was probably like 2013, 14 when we first started sending direct mail. And then I'd say ever since then, it's just been a continual, learning process. Been in masterminds for most of my career, and owe a lot of what I've learned to just being able to be around other people who have done it before and done it better, and be able to model what I do after them.
Man, that's wild that you got started that early. 2013, 14 is pretty early, I would say, in the direct to seller game. I feel like
Yeah,
2018,
I wish I could go back knowing what I know now.
right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that's
you
back
were
in the
probably the
day
only
where,
one that got, these people were like, hey, like, what's this?
yeah,
Now
that was back in
it's
the day when you could get a 3, 4, 5% response rate on a piece of mail, and your return on advertising could be 10x.
seriously. Yeah. So what does it look like now for you guys' operation? Obviously you got to fast forward and it took you a while to get to this point, but like, what does it look like now for you guys?
Yeah, so I think 2014 is when I kind of started my own LLC, got a DBA. So our company's ProSource Home Buyers. And then we are largely a wholesale company. We still do fix and flips and we hold some rentals. But our core business is assigning um, houses. So our team right now, we're mostly based in Knoxville. We do a little bit down in Chattanooga as well. But we have, let's see, a team of like 12 or 13 people, 4 or 5 salespeople, 2, 3 lead intakes, project manager, sales manager, financial controller, um, office manager, so marketing guy.
Wow. Yeah. It's crazy how things just expand and grow over time. Um, yeah. So, and is everyone local, or do you have anyone that's like VAs or anything like that?
We have one VA, and then we have one of our lead intakes who is remote as well. She's in
Mhm.
America, but not local to Tennessee. I think
Yeah.
I think everybody else is pretty much local. We have an
Mhm.
office in Knoxville that a lot of us work out of. So
Yeah. Man. Yeah. That's wild. Okay, so take me back to maybe one of the horror stories that you've had with one of your flips or wholesales, because everyone, it's just a matter of time, right, before we trip up on these things. And so, just curious, have you had anything that you any good stories?
no, everything's been perfect.
I was gonna say you might be the only one that doesn't have a story.
Let's see, one that comes to mind. So we bought this house. It's in Park Ridge, so it's a like historic part of Knoxville um, that has really kind of an up and coming area over the last 5 or 6 years. Used to be it's cool houses, very like ornate, cool historic houses,
Yeah.
but old, like 1900s, 1920s. So we bought this house. I think we bought it for like 20,000, and
Oh.
we could have sold it for 40. Should have sold it for 40, but we decided to do a flip and met a GC because the big flip in the city of Knoxville, so had to pull permits and met this GC, and red flags are going off from the very beginning because this guy pulls up and he's driving like an Infiniti QX80, and which is fine, but after
Yeah.
talking to the guy, you realize that it's a rental car. And so, like, you just have all these red flags going off. Like, this isn't the type, just too
Yeah.
slick, too, it just didn't add up. But
Yeah.
we hired him anyway, and, had some disagreements on how the arrangement was supposed to go. Like, we hired him to be the GC to do the work, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just the GC, pull the permit. You have to find the subs to do the work." So the project it went on for a long period of time. Turns out that this house actually didn't have a foundation. It was just built on the dirt. So, we had the inspectors involved, and basically what they wanted us to do was build a new structure to hold the house up. So what we had to do was come in with these massive, like 6 by 6 posts, one in each corner. It's a simple rectangular house with, just a pitched roof.
Mhm.
So 6 posts, one in each corner, and then two in the middle. they ran these massive LVLs down the middle and then all these 2x12 roof rafters. And so then the whole shell of the house kind of sat on that. But this thing is, all 2x12s and all the roof and sheathing and stuff up top. And so we fired that previous contractor, hired another guy who it turns out wasn't actually the GC. He had somebody else pull the permit for him. And I can't remember the moment why they did this, but they decided we were going to re-side it. So they ripped all the sheathing off of the house. And so you have this massive heavyweight sitting on top of 6 posts, right?
Hmm.
And I get a call one day that the house fell over. So, so literally, like the wind, we had a pretty decent windstorm, and the wind just picked up, and that house with that big heavy roof, it just spun and sat down on itself. Luckily, I mean, because these houses are probably 10 feet each away from each neighbor,
Yeah.
and so I mean, I think we were $90,000 into the renovation plus the 20,000 we paid for the house. Then we scraped the house and sold the lot for 8,000 bucks.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's
I,
crazy.
I was just looking for a write off on my taxes, so I got a $100,000 write
That's
off.
always the excuse. Yeah. When it's all said and done, I've been in that boat. You're like, well, at least I got the write off. Man, that's wild. Yeah, that's a good story. That one's tough to be.
That was rough. It was brutal.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. You feel very angry, and like I tried to go after the contractors, and you try to go after the insurance company, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it all ended up being fruitless, and didn't end up being worth a lawsuit to sue the GC over. And I don't
Man.
remember exactly why insurance wouldn't pay, but the insurance company wouldn't pay either.
Yeah. Oh man, that's wild. So yeah, I guess what were the takeaways from that? Like, how did you guys change after going through something that crazy?
Yeah. Well, hire the right GCs, that's for sure. Start people small. There's a lot of contractors who I think I've been through this enough now who, if they pitch you the world, you know that it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
The ones who talk the biggest game are probably the ones who aren't going to get it done for you. So
Hmm.
we, try to build a relationship with people over time, start small, let them prove that they can do, and you can do what you say you're going to do to build that trust to move on to bigger projects.
Man, such a
And
good point. Yeah, that's definitely like a vet, right? Like
yeah,
that's gone through it. And it's funny because I don't think any of us learn it. Like we all see the number signs, and we're like, hey, we can make so much money. Let's go ahead instead of making the quick profit. Let's, see if
yeah,
we can maximize it, go that route. And yeah, to your point, it's funny. We came out here and initially I was thinking we would just, buy some turnkey stuff that's like paint, lipstick, don't want to do anything major for that reason because I've been through the ringer, several times in Arizona. But yeah, like it wasn't until we found this crew, and we had to go through 3 or 4 different contractors where you lose tens of thousands of dollars. But at least it's not $100,000. You are still losing, $5,000, $10,000 sometimes by having
yeah.
to go back and repeat their work. And that's
What's
frustrating.
that? What's that contractor's number?
Yeah, right. No, you know how many times I've been asked for that too out here. They're like, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't mind sharing that, right? I'm like, you have no idea. That cost me like 50 grand to find this guy. Okay. Like, I mean, we have to go through things to get to him. And then the other thing I've learned obviously with them over time is, yeah, you got to keep them busy too. Cause if they're idle for even a week, then
To go find
someone
someone
comes on
else.
the Home Depot. Hey, yeah, what's your number? And so you got to be, yeah, keep those good contractors busy.
Yeah.
That's definitely been a lesson learned for us. And now at this point, they're like swamped, and they're like, I don't even want to think about going anywhere
With
else.
all swamped with just your work.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean they've got work for days. I don't think they'll run out for the next year. So that's good, but yeah, it does take those type of experiences, and that's why I always love talking about failures because it's really just kind of like a painful lesson. Sometimes it costs more than others, but that one
Yeah.
was pretty good. Yeah, 6-figure lesson. You don't forget that one.
Yeah. I won't ever forget that phone call from my project manager. The house fell down. I'm like, what do you mean the house? The house didn't fall down. So what do you really mean?
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, maybe a wall or something or the roof, but man, that's pretty impressive. The whole entire house. That's too funny.
It's
Um,
pretty funny because I was doing another flip right now, and the GC, I was telling my GC, who's a buddy of mine, about this story.
yeah.
And the inspector from when the house fell down, he had photos of that house and was showing it off to him, like, hey, look what happened to this guy.
So yeah, you provided stories for their entire department now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you own that? Yeah, one time. That's too funny. Yeah, the other thing that I hear a lot because it's funny, our contractors actually do have nice vehicles, right? And it's funny because every time that they do pull up, all the flippers and wholesalers are like, "Oh man, you guys are paying this guy way too much." Like there's always that. Yeah, just I don't know what it is. It's just kind of known in the
But
industry.
they probably have nice trucks,
Right.
right?
Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
like an F-350 or they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, look at this guy."
And I mean, and there's nothing saying that a good contractor can't drive a QX80, but it was just something about the story where his car was in
Yeah.
the shop and like he needed to rent a nice, really nice car and like show up to the job site in, dress shoes and a button-down
Yeah, and
shirt.
there's a reason why that's a red flag. Like it normally does lead to bad things, right? So sometimes there's the exception to the rule, but I have noticed that actually is kind of like a pretty solid like red flag. Just
Well, the
just
super, the, I mean, I don't even remember who the guy is at the time right now, but I remember like following, seeing him around a little bit, like on Facebook and investment groups and stuff afterwards. And it's a
yeah.
little scary to me because he went on to like be a syndicator, raise a bunch of money for like
Oh,
apartment deals or house deals. And I'm just like, oh, this could go
yeah.
really poorly.
Oh, that can't be good. Oh man, that's so crazy. I love it. No, those are great stories. So, yeah, typically what I like to do to wrap up podcasts, I like to ask three questions to everyone, and so I'm going to see if I can remember all three of them, but I should at this point. So the first question is, is there like a book or podcast that you've listened to or read recently that has made a big impact on, you or your business or family or whatever?
Oh, I think there's been a lot. I mean, the most recent one was the new book by Alex Hormozy, $100 Million Leads. We're actually, as a company right now, working through some of the things that he talks about trying to implement in our company.
Mhm.
Um, but if you look at most influential, um, probably, shoot, what's the Traction, the EOS book?
Yeah.
At that time in our company, before we read the book and kind of got on with a coach to help us, like we just didn't have the stuff like the one-page plan, the 3-year plan, all this, the things that you need to be able to successfully run your business. We just
Mhm.
didn't know about it, didn't have it, and so having those tools like how to run a meeting properly it has been super impactful.
Yeah, I'm curious with the Alex Hormozy book. I know he had 100 million. What was his first book? It wasn't
$100
leads,
million offers,
offers. Okay.
yeah.
Between those two, which would you recommend the most? Like, which did you take away more from?
I think it probably depends where you're at in the business.
Yeah.
Although, if you read the $100 Million Leads book, it could be you don't have a business and you're trying to start one, and he talks about cold outreach all the way through. If you're a huge company, there are tactics in there um, to get leads and grow your business. But if you're in a time of scaling where you've got a lot of process stuff that needs to be worked on and implemented, then I think
Mhm.
using some sort of tool or system like Traction is a great place to start.
Yeah. No, totally agree. Yep. Yep. We still do the L10 meetings, and a lot of the things that we took from that book as well was transformational. Before that, it was just kind of like Wild West. Everyone's kind of running around trying to figure it out. But yeah, that brought some order to the chaos. So no, I agree. That's a great book. Cool. What was a big growth year for you? Would you say, like, if you had to look back, what was there like a certain year that you look back on like, man, that year I grew like a decade worth, in just that one year?
Well, that's a tough one. I would probably say last year or this year, the combination thereof.
Yeah.
Um, we grew fairly steadily through the years, and then into 2021, 2022 started to kind of scale exponentially. And probably middle of 2022, we were in 4 markets and had 34 employees. And in the beginning of 22, we also stopped wholesaling houses, and we were buying everything and either flipping it or just reselling it as is on the MLS. And we had the best 6 months we've ever had in 2022 in the first half. And then interest rates, went from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. I forget where they ended last year, but probably 6 or 7.
Mhm.
And the market just shifted drastically, and the product that we had on hand wasn't selling for what it was before, and the demand for these rough as is type properties just fell off a cliff.
Mhm.
And so I think we were maybe August or September, and we were sitting with 34 houses on the MLS not selling. And it was just rough. It was a tough year. A lot of um, just introspection on ourselves, trying to figure out, okay, where do we go wrong?
Mhm.
What did we do wrong here? What part of this did we have to own? Because I 100% don't blame the issues that we had on the market. It was issues that were already there that were just exposed due to the market conditions changing.
Mhm.
Um, so we, basically through the second half of last year, just had a bunch of bad assets that we had to get rid of. Luckily, a lot of them we still had equity in, so we went to sell them. We could still sell them and put money in the bank, but we lost money on 30 or 40 houses.
Mhm.
And to come kind of to a crescendo at the end of the year where um, we're just in a tough spot. And I'm like, we can't let the business just run out of money, because if we run out of money, then we just don't exist anymore. So we had to do some pretty significant layoffs and cut the team down to like 6, 7, 8 people at the end of the year. So a lot of learning there, and then I think a ton of growth through that this year, and trying to grow the business the right way. Really, really have dove in on like how to manage people correctly, how to manage expectations. We've put a ton of work into like building out process guides and training so everybody knows what's expected. Everybody's got their KPIs. They've got dashboards to watch their KPIs on.
Mhm.
And so we're just, we're still passionate about growth. We're just trying to do it right this time.
Man. Yeah, it's funny because I think people listening to this podcast that are not in the real estate industry, they probably went through last year being like, maybe it was a mild recession. We didn't notice anything in our industry. It's not a big deal. But real estate, there was, I mean, don't make any mistake about it, it's a full blown recession, right? And your story, obviously reverberated through the entire nation. And so when I ask that question, a lot of people will say the same thing that are in our shoes that have run these operations. And I love your point where, look, I'm not blaming the market, for what occurred. All that did was it exposed we had some major cracks that were just covered up because the market was so good that we were actually like blessed for making dumb mistakes,
Yeah.
which shouldn't happen. And then the minute that it corrected and got tight, it was like, oh, there you go. You're out there naked, the tide has gone, and you're like, whoa. And so, yeah, we went through very, very similar, where even with like our new construction, it was like, oh, if it takes an extra 4 months, sweet. We just made an extra 10%, which again,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Now you can't do that. Like you have to be just buttoned up. And so, no, I love that you had that perspective, and in retrospect, being like, look, it wasn't the market, because that's the easy answer, right? Like, oh, it wasn't our fault. The Fed. Um, but yeah, taking that ownership is a big deal. So, man, yeah, that's awesome. Um, okay, so and this kind of dovetails with that question, but the third question is, um, if you could go back, let's say towards the beginning of your career, knowing what you know now, about running an operation, having gone through all of these things, I guess what is some advice that you would give your younger self, or what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that having the right people in the right seats in your company is crucial to success. Um, I think in our earlier years, we've been super slow to fire and maybe too easy to hire. And so, what's become brutally honest to me is that when you get an A player in the team, you know it. There's no doubt about it. You know you have an A player. And, I feel like my job as the leader of this company and the other leadership team members that are in this company is to make sure that we ourselves are A players because you're not going to have people that are, working for you that rise to a level higher than you are. So we have to be A players. And then our only other job is to make sure we get other A players on the bus and in the right seat. And, I think it's the only way really to be competitive in the market, and it's the best way to win.
Wow. Yeah, couldn't have said it better, and I could not agree more. And it's funny because yeah, to your point, I'm at the point now in my career after 15 years of hiring people and firing and going through that process over and over and over again. I always tell people, look, in the first like week, I'm gonna know in the first day, I swear, like
Yeah.
it does not take time. It's just like in sports where you either got it or you don't. Like the minute you see a quarterback throw the ball, you're like, yeah, he's got it. Or quickly we're like, oh yeah, this guy's, he's a joke. And you just can't cover it up because the minute you get in the game, it's like, oh, you can't talk any talk. Like you got to walk it and back it up. And so, no, I love your point of not only the right people, but the right seat. And then A players attract A players. And so it's that snowball effect. And you guys clearly have gone through that, with your organization. I got to go there, whatever it was, a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And same thing where you get to go in and kind of see the operation. You're like, oh yeah, these guys are buttoned up. Like they're the real deal. Like this is pretty cool to see. And it's fun to see the organization kind of humming, firing at all cylinders. And so super cool what you guys have built out there. And it's cool you guys are right in our backyard. So
You're in my backyard.
I know, man. Right. Yeah. Like, and it's great. We were actually closing on our first wholesale from you guys, trying to get a few more from Heidi. So she's been awesome to work with. So
Yeah.
shout
We
out to
just need to
Heidi.
move your operation up to Knoxville and start buying some Knoxville deals.
We need to. I know that's for sure the next step. I love Knoxville, but I love Chattanooga too. I think I'm biased down here. It's probably just because I got started down here a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to learn
I've
the
got a
name.
good I've got a good contractor. I could find his name for you.
Yeah. Again, yeah. We'll have to talk offline.
Uh,
That's awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show, Pat.
yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.